So, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another deck profile video. Today we're going to be covering Shakkoumon from BT16, mainly just for the fun factor really for this deck. This deck is, well, can be created in many different variants and can be, well, it can be included in multiple different deck types. My deck I'm showing today is just purely a fun build that's been made, something that I'm getting on really well with at the moment. I'm very much enjoying it. There are going to be some cards where you think, actually that shouldn't be in there. Okay, fair enough. But like I said, it's just a fun deck, something I'm playing around with at the moment. Tweaks and stuff will follow at later stages, but right now I'm quite happy with where the deck is. So we'll just jump straight into it. So we're going to focus on the eggs just to start with. So we've got 4 of Shakkoumon from BT16. Naturally, this seems to be the core egg for this deck. Essentially, your opponent's turn, whilst this Digimon has 2 or more colours, it will gain blocker. So it's just a very good 4 to have for this deck because you're going to gain blocker from level 3 upwards. Next, we go into our rookies. So let's just start with the BT16 support. Now we've got our first 4 rookies being Armadillomon from BT16. This is just a very good card in general for this deck. It digivolves for 0 on top of Shakkoumon, so that's obviously why we're running that egg. It's got a your turn once per turn effect, where essentially if one of your other Digimon are played or digivolved into a Digimon with 3 in its traits or is yellow, you gain a memory. Its inherited effect is an all turns effect, where essentially this Digimon would gain 1000 DP. It's a very good card for this deck, and it does support some of the level 5 upwards, which is ideal, but we'll cover that shortly. Oh, blimey, there we go. Right. The next set of rookies that we're playing is Patamon from BT16. So this one here. So we are running 4. It is a good card. I am debating whether to take some out or not, but at the moment I'm quite happy with where they are. It's a start of main effect or on play effect. Essentially, if it's your turn, one of your Digimon may digivolve into a level 4 Digimon with either Angel or 3 in its traits from the hand, with the Digivolution cost reduced by 1. The inherited effect is when attacking, and it's not once per turn. It's trash the top Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon. So it's a good card. The unfortunate factor for this card is that you will ultimately have to pay a 1 cost on top of the Shakkoumon. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Ideally, you want to be combining this card with the Tamer I'll be showing you shortly, just to play it out through effects and utilize low cost Digivolution. Next one, we got another Patamon, but this time it's the promo. It's on play. You get to search your security stack, and then you can add any one yellow or black card with 2 or more colors from your security stack and add it to the hand. And if you do, you recover +1. Now, this is effectively just another version of TK from BT1, but it's a good tool to have, I think, especially for early game, just so you can identify exactly what you've got in your security and what you can use later on if you need to. But otherwise, yeah, you don't really need to be running more than 2 of these, I don't think. It's inherited as well. All of your opponent's security Digimon gets minus 2000 EP. So again, it does go rather well if you are deciding to swing with your level 5s. Because then at least then you're going to effectively not get caught in any trouble, but you never know. But yeah, it's just a good 2 to have though. The last set of rookies that we run in this deck are essentially the core. But we run 4 of the Armadillo promos. Been trying to get my hands on these for a little while, to be fair, so I'm glad I finally got them. But you on play, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and you can add one black or yellow card with 2 or more colors, and you can also add 1 Tamer card with Cody Heater in its name. And that's, ultimately you can target 2 cards out of 3, and if you get both, you put them to the hand. However, naturally, any cards that you don't select will be bottom decked. The main aspect of this card, however, other than its search power, is its inherited effect, which is an end of turn DNA, which goes down very well if you're sort of on the back foot. But yeah, just a good 4 of this card. You're sort of risking it a bit if you don't have 4, but ultimately you could swap. If you don't have access to that particular card, you can swap it out for any other version of Armadillo, namely anything from BT8, such as Searchers. But moving on to the level 4s. So we'll start with the BT16 support in this particular range. So we've got 4 of the Ankylomon. So it digivolves for a cost of 2 on top of an Armadillo. Otherwise, it can digivolve for a cost of 3 on any blue or yellow level 3. It's got barrier, so it can be protected. It's also got an on-play and when digivolving effect, where you get to select one of your opponent's Digimons, and they effectively can't attack players until the end of their turn. The All-Turns effect is very similar to the Armadillo from the same set, where essentially your Digimon will gain an additional 1000 DP. This card is just very good in general, especially for this deck. And the aim really is just mainly because it has barrier. The fact that you can also stop one of your opponent's Digimon from attacking you directly is actually kind of handy as well. So yeah, I'm running just 4 at the moment. I'm not considering taking it out anytime soon to make room for anything else. Next up, we have Shakkoumon. This is just a very good card overall. Again, digivolves for free over either black or yellow level 3 Digimon. Otherwise, you can digivolve for a cost of 2 on top of an Armadillo. It has Armor Purge, has Collision. If you're not familiar with Collision, effectively, all of your opponent's Digimon will gain blocker, and they have to block when you attack if they're able to. Its All-Turns effect will then ultimately be part of this effect, because it's a once per turn, but when an attack target is switched, you may end the attack. So you're basically forcing your opponent's Digimon to suspend, you end the attack, and then you can potentially swing over it with something else, or alternatively, you avoid that potential blocker element, and then you can just swing for game. Sadly, it doesn't come with any inherited effects, but I think that's purely on the basis of this card being somewhat strong for its main effects. So, but again, a good solid 4 off to have. The next 2 I've got is Angemon from BT8. I don't really get on well with the new BT16 Angemon, not for this particular deck that I've built anyway, but this one has a your turn effect where essentially when it would digivolve, if you have 3 or fewer security cards, you get to recover +1. It's inherited as well. When attacking, again, it's not once per turn, but if you have 3 or more security cards, you get to return one of your opponent's Digimon that's level 3, and you return that card back to the owner's hand. But yeah, it's a good 2 off to have, especially if because ultimately this deck is not super aggressive, and there are ultimately all the matches I've been playing up against, ultimately you do fall behind because this deck takes a little while to get going. But yeah, this is just a good 2 off to have, just to try and keep track of your security and make sure that you don't just end up with no security left. So next 2 we have Submarine Mom. So we have gone back a bit with BT8, but ultimately it's Armor Purge. It can digivolve over Armadillo for a cost of 2, or over a blue Digimon level 3 for a cost of 3. When digivolving, you would trash the bottom Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon. Then one of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards gets minus 3000 DP for the turn. So this is a good card generally for getting rid of, memory blockers or Digimon that don't allow you to play Digimon by effects and so forth, because they're all going to be under 3000 DP. So it's a good 2 off to have, especially but at the same time, the Armor Purge does come in handy just to prevent your Digimon from being deleted. Next up, we have our level 5s. Now, we'll start with the big one first. So, 4 of the new Shakkoumon. This card's very, very good, generally, but it's got a when Digivolving effect. Now, it comes with Partition already. If you're not familiar with Partition, in short, basically, if it has the 2 relevant sources underneath in its Digivolution sources, if your opponent's effects were to delete this Digimon, you can play out the sources through the Partition effect. And then ultimately Shakow will die, but your sources will remain in play. The when Digivolving effect for this particular Digimon is that ultimately its standard effect is that it remains unaffected by Digimon effects until the end of your opponent's turn. Now, the secondary effect, which is the DNA effect, is that you're able to place one of your opponent's Digimon with with as high or lower a level as that number of cards in your in both yours or your opponent's security stack. So you can choose one or the other. So it's a good way of getting around having to remove a body from board if you don't want to remove that body because of things like Partition. But whatever you choose, should you choose anything, will go to the bottom of your opponent's security stack, as opposed to being bottom decked or returned to hand. The inherited effect for this card as well is exactly the same as its main effect, which is Partition. So this actually comes in very handy for another level 5 Digimon that I'm next going to show you. So I'll put this to one side for a sec and I'll explain what Digimon that is in a moment. So going into our level 5s rather. So we've got 2 Chimeramon. Now, this is why I run them. It's just because of Shakkoumon. Now, ultimately, Chimeramon can DNA Digivolve over any 2 level 4 Digimon. So that card you're not going to find much bricking with. I know you're not able to search it, and ultimately you're not able to select it through any of your rookie Digimon or other effects. But Chimeramon does come in handy very, very well for this deck. It's when Digivolving effect is ultimately you get to place a level 5 Digimon or lower from your trash underneath Chimeramon as its bottom Digivolution source, which is why new Shakkoumon comes in handy, because ultimately at the bottom of your sources you're now going to have Partition. So yeah, we are running 2 of the Chimeramon purely on the basis of obtaining such an effect. Alongside of that, should you have, as part of its when Digivolving effect, once you've placed that level 5 or lower Digimon underneath it, you can then target up to 4 of your opponent's Digimon and give them minus 1000 DP for each colour that your Chimeramon has. So with a lot of the colours you see in this, you've got black, yellow and blue. Ultimately, the white also is included as part of that effect. So you're almost guaranteed to have 4 colours. So you can clear a board to some degree, depending on what it is that you're going up against. It also has a your turn effect, where if it has 4 or more colours, it gains an additional 4000 DP. So add that 4000 plus the Ankylo and the Armadillo, you can essentially become a 14,000 DP Chimeramon. You will only swing for 1 check, but at least you're not going to encounter any problems. So yeah, I just think 2 other Chimera is actually pretty good for this deck. Next up, and our last set of level 5s, we've got Shakkoumon from BT8. I really, really like this DNA card. I used to run it in my armor deck, but that's now been removed to make room for the new Magnamon support. So with this one, you would essentially DNA. If you have 5 or fewer security cards, you get to recover +1. And then because you've DNA'd, you can select one of your opponent's Digimon whose level is less than or equal to the amount of security cards you have in your security. And you can then return that Digimon back to your opponent's hand. So if you're going for early game, you're automatically going to have 5 already, but you'll recover 1, you go up to 6, and you can bounce a level 6 from the board. So it's just a good 2-off to have generally, because it's such a good card. Moving on to our level 6s. So I don't think it's going to be any surprise that I'm running 4 of these, but I'm running 4 of Shakkoumon Ace from BT16. It's just a very good blast card. So it's got an on-play and when digivolving effect, you digivolve 2 on one of your opponent's Digimon. And then your opponent can't attack with any Digimon with 1 or fewer Digivolution cards until the end of their turn. It also has a when attacking effect where you would delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 1 or fewer Digivolution cards. So the Digivolution aspect of this is very good, especially more so for earlier game or mid game. But its on play is also kind of handy as well, because there will be times where you will be able to get up to 4 memory. So if you do need to pass turn for any reason to sort of protect yourself, just hard playing this card may do you some good. It's effectively a form of Saurai almost. But yeah, just a 4 of those. Now this is where it gets interesting. So I've already shown you obviously my tech in regards to level 5s being a Chimeramon, but with level 6s I'm going for Mega Gargomon. Now this is probably the part of the video where you're probably wondering why it's here, but I know it's not got 3 in its traits or anything like that, but it's still a 2 color black card, so you can still search it from both your Armadillos and your Patamons. And ultimately, this card is, it could easily be replaced by Valkyrimon. But I've chosen not to replace this. The reason why Mega Gargo's here is for control. It's got blocker, it's got reboot. Ultimately, a majority of your level 5s will be, well, half of your level 5s are black coloured. So there are going to be opportunities where you can blast, whereas the Vikemon can essentially just blast on all of your Digimon. But the reason why I'm running 2 of these is because of the when digivolving effects and the end of attack effects. So when digivolving, you would suspend 2 of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, and then you would select 2 of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, and they can't unsuspend or digivolve until the end of their turn. The second when digivolving effect is also an end of attack effect, which is once per turn, but you may unsuspend this Digimon. So it's a good defensive card. I know we've got that with Vikemon already, but the level 6s are, for me, this is all about control. So control the board, control the tempo, control the pace. So this has come in handy very well. And I think we all agree that it's a stupidly strong ace card. But yeah, I mean, you can still gain the memory through Cody and whatnot, because it's still technically a black color card. So yeah, it's very, very good. Now, the next tech I'm throwing in is a level 7 by the name of Chaosmon from BT16. So I know, again, this is probably the part of it you go, why would you throw that in there? You've got no level 6 yellow cards or anything like that. I don't care about the whole DNA aspect for this card. I just like the effects overall. So you can still digivolve for 5 on top of a yellow or a black level 5 card. Now it's got barrier, blocker, it's got partition, which you'll never use. But the when digivolving effect is ultimately you digivolve by 3 and then you choose one of your opponent's Digimon and delete it, as long as it's got 8,000 DP or less. The end of opponent's turn effect is that both players would trash the top card of their security stack. So this is more for late game than it is mid. Ideally, you want to be playing this on sort of the last turn before you can swing for game. But at the same time, the effects are stupid funny. That's why I've thrown it in. I'm refusing to throw Death-X into this deck. If I were to go competitively with this, I would. But like I said earlier on in the video, this is all just a fun-based build with a few techie options. and some of these effects, when they do pop, they can be really, really funny. So yeah, just a one-off of Chaosmon, just in relation to this deck build. Now, next up we have our Tamers. Now, we'll start with our full set of Tamer from BT16. We've got Cody and TK. So it's exactly the same as the Davis and Ken. It's also the same as Yole and Kari. But ultimately, starter main effect is that you can play Armadillo or Patamon from your hand without paying the cost. And it also has a your turn effect where ultimately, if you were to Digivolve into a black or yellow Digimon card, you can suspend this Tamer, gain a memory. But if you've DNA Digivolved, you can also de-Digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon. So you can see where all of this is sort of lining up now. There's a lot of de-Digivolution going on here. There are some cards which can bounce or delete, but this is a mandatory 4-off for this deck. It's the main Tamer. You can use other variants of Cody or TK if you want to throw them into this deck, but this is the only version of Cody that I use, because the other two Tamers I run are all the way back to the beginning of the game, which is BT1, is TK. Now, with this one, it's your memory setter, so you're always going to start on 3 memory, but the on-play is what I like the most. It's essentially the same as the Patamon from the promo, but you on-play, you look at your security stack, you then reveal 1 card. It's not a you may effect either, so you have to reveal 1 card, and as long as it's yellow, you're going to recover +1. If you don't have a yellow card in your security, that can be a problem, because you're ultimately taking a hit. But at the same time, it may well be that card is crucial. So yeah, we just run 2 of TK, just mainly for the memory setting, but at the same time, it gives you an idea of what you can find in your security. The option cards that we then run, so we run 2 of the Advent of the Ancient Steel Angel from BT16. This is a nice way of getting your Ankylomons or Angemons out for just a free cost. But ultimately, the main effect is that you can play one or the other from your hand without paying the cost, and then you can choose 2 of your Digimon's DNA into a Digimon card also from your hand. Essentially, as well, if it does DNA by this effect, you can recover +1. The Inherited is a security effect, but ultimately it allows you to play a Armadillo or Patamon from your trash or hand without paying the cost, and then you add this option card to your hand. It's a good 2-off just to have, generally, because at least then you can get your pieces out and play. I don't really think you need any more than that. In theory, you could also take them out and just throw in training boosts if you really wanted to. But for me, it's just a 2-off of those. It does often work. So, and then the last card for the deck is none other than an option card that I feel is heavily underappreciated in this game, and that's Trident Arm. It's probably up there as my top 2 cards that I think are underestimated in this deck. Sorry, in the Digimon game overall. The other one's blue card from EX2. But in regards to this particular card, the main effect is what ideally I'm intending to use of this, which is you de-Digivolve 3 on one of your opponent's Digimon. Then until the end of your opponent's turn, one of their Digimon will be given a start of main effect, which is they have to attack. This goes down very well, as a combo with any of your ace cards. Because if you've got the level 5 in play, let's just say, for example, you have the BT16 Shakkoumon, you've already DNA'd, you're unaffected by Digimon effects anyway. You'll then play Trident Arm, force your opponent to swing on the next turn, and then you can essentially ace into a Mega Gargo or a Vike, or any other ace card, depending on what you're using. Especially in mirror matchups, that combo works very well. And the only reason why I'm using it in this particular deck is because it was a huge success for me in my Rapidmon build. where I threw in Trident Arm as a tech choice. But yeah, it's just a solid card. The security effect is still pretty good as well, where you can de-digivolve free one of your opponent's Digimon. Doesn't do anything else other than that, but it's still a good card generally. But that's my other tech defense card, really. But that's it. That's all 50 cards for this deck. Like I said, it's only a fun build. It's nothing super competitive. It does win matches here and there. It does, in some ways, have consistency issues, but we're running 14 rookies for a reason, and that's just to make sure that we get our relevant pieces together and then maintain the pace and control on the board. There is much to this deck that I would change if I were to make it more competitive, just for consistency reasons, really. But I do like a bit of variety, and most of the cards I have chosen for this deck are very tech related. So yeah, by all means, feel more than welcome to use this. Test it out at your own locals and so forth. Let me know in the comments what you would change or what deck lists you're currently running. I'll be keen to read them all. And if you're not supporting the channel, obviously you can click that little subscription button and just support us all the way through. There's going to be loads more decks coming out soon. At the time of this video, obviously EX6 has also come out, so there's going to be some Mastemon stuff and Diaboromon stuff heading this way as well. So yeah, all support is appreciated, but thank you very much for watching this video, and you take care. Bye bye.